My name is Zadie Marlowe. I am 54 years old. I grew up on a little farm outside of Pine Ridge and moved to the suburbs when my son graduated high school. I worked 30 years as a school office clerk. I paid my taxes. I took care of my mother until she died. I did the quiet things that keep a home together. I thought 54 would look like peace. Instead it looked like a cardboard box by the door and a voice I did not recognize. The voice belonged to my daughter-in-law. Her name is Tessa Hart. She is 32 and she has a face that smiles mostly at plans and not at people. She walked into my living room and stopped when she saw the old cloth on my favorite chair. She lifted one eyebrow like I had left a storm in the house. "Why is that old rag here?" she said. "We do not have space." She put the word rag in a tone that made it mean more than cloth. The rag had belonged to my mother. It was a patchwork quilt small enough for my lap, but big enough for my memory. The quilt smelled faintly of lavender and mothballs. It had a burn mark from the stove where my brother had almost started a fire when we were children. My mother had stitched our names into one corner. My son had stitched his baby teeth into my memory, and my husband had pressed his hand into the weave one warm night and never lived to press it again. When Tessa said rag, I felt heat at the back of my neck. She did not call it a quilt. She did not see the part of my life that was threaded into it. She saw a piece of cloth taking up space in her house. My son Aaron stood behind her by the kitchen doorway. He looked smaller than his age, which was 29. He looked like the kind of man who had learned how to choose peace over the right moment. He had the quiet way of men who grew up with a mother who taught them to hold grief like a hymn. He is my son, and his silence hurt me because it felt like he had no shield for me. Tessa did not stop. She swept the rag into her arms as if she wanted to toss it out on the porch. Her voice rose. "We are saving for a down payment," she said. "We have bills. We do not have space for old things. We do not have room for memories that do not pay rent." I stepped forward. My knees wanted to bend. My hands wanted to steady the quilt. The quilt kept time with the rhythm of my life. I put my fingers on the edge where my name was stitched in blue thread. The letters trembled the way my heart trembled. Tessa looked at me like I was a plant in the middle of the room that needed moving. I tried to explain the story of that quilt. I tried to tell her about the winter my mother placed it on my lap and said, "You will always have this." I told her about the night I left it on the porch and the raccoon chewed the corner. I told her how my husband tucked the quilt over my knees when our baby cried and he could not sleep. I told her that sometimes grief needs a blanket that remembers your face. She did not listen. She tossed the quilt toward the trash bin by the door the same way she would toss a receipt she did not want later. For a heartbeat, the quilt flew like a small trapped bird and the room slowed down. I reached and my nails grazed it. Her hand moved quicker. She grabbed it and threw it into the bin. When fabric met plastic, there was a small soft sound like something closing on a lie. My son did not move. He looked at the floor. He said nothing. I felt the room go thin and the air go smaller. I felt like a pedal pulled from my chest. The neighbors might have heard. Mrs. Clark from across the hall knocked at the door a week ago when the lights were out in our stairwell. She brought a casserole and her own stories. I thought for a second she would come through the wall and save me. But she was not here now. My hands went into my handbag and I fumbled for coins I had kept for nothing. That is when I saw the envelope on the shelf behind the chair. It was tucked under a stack of old church bulletins. The envelope was yellowed and had my name in my husband's handwriting. My heart slammed like a fist. I had not seen that envelope in years. He had written to me the summer before he died. He told me to keep the things that meant something and to sell the rest. He had folded the letter small and put it inside the quilt seam the day he fixed the tear. I had forgotten it was there because grief buries things like seeds. Now the envelope sat exactly where the quilt had been, as if someone had slid the quilt away and left the truth standing. The top of the envelope was cracked open like a mouth. My fingers touched the edge. The paper inside smelled faintly of tobacco and coffee. My hands shook so badly that I had to sit down. Tessa did not notice. She was busy telling my son about a payday loan she had been promised and how the landlord had called again. Her voice was an economy. Aaron keeps his shoulders bent toward other people's needs. He had a mortgage plan and a job that paid his bills but not his heart. He wanted everyone to be comfortable. I wanted him to be brave. I stood there with the envelope and my chest heavy like a purse filled with stones. I did not run. I did not shout at Tessa. I had already learned the hard lessons about raising sons in houses that teach silence. My mother had taught me to measure my anger like salt. Too much and the children cannot eat. Too little and no one knows you are there. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a small page with numbers. The letter was in my husband's handwriting. It said keep the quilt and keep the papers. He had scribbled something about the old farmhouse that had been in his family, and a deed and a tax record. He told me not to sell the land no matter who asked because there were memories rooted like trees. He told me to trust my own hands. He wrote that if anything happened to him I should have the courage to choose myself. My ribs felt like they had grown wings. The numbers on the small page were a code for a safe deposit key and an account with a small sum that could cover rent for a few months or a down payment on a tiny place. My husband had planned for me the way people plan secret gardens. He had hidden the map under the quilt. I remember the day he took me to the bank and put his finger next to a file. He said we will be safe. He promised. After he died I thought the safety had died too. People say the dead can leave you nothing but memories. He had left me a place to stand. My breath came short because if those papers were still valid there was a chance I could keep my home. But Tessa had put the quilt in the bin. I moved faster than I thought I could. I reached into the trash as if I were reaching into the dark for a child. Tessa turned and saw my hand in the bin. Her face went hard. Her eyes shrank into something like calculation. She stepped forward and jerked the quilt out of my hand. Her fingers closed like clamps. "Do not touch my things," she said. "Those are our things. Those are our things." The words fell like a slap. I had given my life to raise this son. I had kept his laundry folded and fed his friends when they had no money. I had kept a roof together while my husband took jobs that made his hands thick. I had been careful with our small life. But Tessa had said like she belonged to a contract that came with no memory. She spoke like the house was purely her ledger. I held the envelope, bending it in my palm. The letter inside was wet. My tears had dropped on the paper and blurred the ink. I felt foolish and bright all at once. "You cannot throw away what you do not understand," I said. Tessa laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that goes straight for the throat. She stepped toward the door with the quilt hugged to her chest. Aaron still watched. He looked like a man who had been taught to live between two truths. At the door Tessa paused and turned her head toward me. The light from the hallway fell on her face and a small smile flickered there like a coin. When she opened the door she said something I did not expect. She said the house was small and the baby was coming and they could not carry more things. She said everything in a voice that sounded like a lawyer reading a verdict. I looked down at the letter and the small page with numbers. I thought of men who leave breadcrumbs for women to find. I thought of a future that could be quiet and safe if I could only hold on to what was mine. I reached for the quilt one last time. My hand brushed the edge but Tessa pulled it away and the fabric slipped from my grip. It fell and landed at the threshold between the living room and the hallway. For a second the quilt looked like a bridge between two rooms and two lives. Then Tessa stamped on it with the heel of her shoe. The stitch where my husband's name was began to come loose. The corner with my name lifted like a flag. In that moment a small paper slid from inside the quilt and disappeared under the door. The paper was no bigger than a postage stamp. I saw it slide and vanish forever under the door. I saw it go to a place I could not follow. I felt everything empty out. The room grew quiet in a way that made my ears ring. My son closed his mouth. Tessa smiled like she had one. I crouched and put my face close to the floor and peered under the door. The paper was gone. My fingers could not reach. My heart tightened. I stood up. My knees felt like the small bones of a bird. I pressed my palms to the wall to steady myself. Tessa had the quilt. Erin had not moved. The paper had dropped and disappeared. I had the envelope and the rest of the letter, but not the small page with numbers. If that small page was important, then someone now had a part of my life in their pocket. If that page was nothing, then maybe I was making something out of air. Either way, I knew I could not let the quilt go on the say-so of someone who called my memories rag. I walked toward the door and stopped. I felt the house hold its breath with me. Behind Tessa, the hallway light hummed. Beyond the hallway, the street was calm. I could hear the evening news on the television next door. I could hear life go on. Tessa turned the doorknob. She did not notice that the envelope in my hand had a smudge of her lipstick on the edge from where she had kissed the quilt to fold it. She did not see the way my mouth curled when I remembered that my husband had always been better at hiding things than people believed. She pulled the door open and the cold air of the night slid into the room. As she stepped outside, she dropped the quilt. Her foot caught in the fringe and the quilt brushed against the threshold. I wanted to grab it. I wanted to be held. I wanted to be seen. Instead, I heard a car door slam on the street and the sound of a baby crying from the house next door. I heard my son clear his throat. And then Tessa shut the door. I stood in the doorway of my home and listened to the muffled sound of the quilt beneath the weight of the world. The night after Tessa slammed the door felt longer than any night I had known in my 54 years. I sat alone in that quiet house, holding the letter my husband wrote before he died, the one I had forgotten even existed. My fingers brushed over his handwriting again and again, as if touching the ink could bring him back or give me the strength I had lost standing in front of my own son. I tried to sleep. I truly did. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little page slip under the door. The paper with the numbers. The paper that might have held the answers to everything. When the morning light finally pushed through the blinds, I felt older than I had the day before. My bones ached, not from age, but from a kind of heartbreak that squeezes the joints and presses on the lungs. I sat up slowly and remembered the last thing I had whispered to myself before sleep. There is something under this house. Something I forgot. I had not thought of the floorboards in years. Not since my husband told me he repaired a broken plank near the hallway closet. He said it so casually back then. Just a loose board, honey. But the memory had returned last night like a knock on the door. I pulled on my housecoat, tied the belt tight, and stepped into the hallway. The air still smelled faintly of last night's storm of anger. I went to the small closet and pushed aside the bucket, the broom, and a pair of winter boots I never wore anymore. A soft creak responded when I stepped on the second board. There you are, I whispered. I knelt down. The old wood groaned under my weight, and my knees complained, but I pressed on. My fingers slid along the edge of the board until I felt the slight lift at the corner. I pressed harder. The board cracked, rose a little, and then popped up. Underneath was a small dark space filled with dust and an old metal tin the size of a lunchbox. My breath caught in my chest. I reached in slowly, as if something alive might grab my hand. The tin was cold, the kind of cold that settles deep into things left alone too long. I pulled it out and sat back against the wall, my heart hammering. The lid stuck for a moment before it finally opened. Inside, resting on a folded piece of blue cloth, was a key. A single brass key. Heavy. Old. And beside it was another envelope with my name on it. Zadie. Just my name. Nothing more. My hands started shaking again. I sat still for a moment, listening to the house, wondering if this was what my husband meant. If he had known one day I would need a way out. A way back to myself. I opened the envelope. Inside was a note written in his voice. The voice I had almost forgotten. The voice that always felt like steady ground. If you are reading this, something or someone has pushed you too far. The farmhouse is still yours. Do not let anyone take what belongs to you. The key is for the gate. The bank file will guide you. Stand firm. One day you will need this strength. The farmhouse. The word made my breath stop. I had not stepped foot on that land in almost 20 years. The house had been falling apart even back then. But the land was ours. My husband's family land. Acres of quiet earth and a small rundown home that held our early memories. But why would he hide this letter? Why keep this key? And why did he think I would need this someday? I wiped my eyes and folded the note carefully. I looked at the key. Something about it felt heavy with meaning. Just when I was about to close the tin box, I noticed something else wedged at the bottom. A tiny silver locket with no chain. I opened it gently. Inside was a picture of me in my 20s, holding baby Aaron. My husband must have put it here long before the world got heavy. I closed the locket and whispered, "You always tried to protect us." Then a sharp knock hit the front door. My body stiffened. I set the tin aside and stood up. Another knock. Louder this time. I opened the door slowly, bracing myself for Tessa, for her voice, for her anger, for another battle. But it wasn't her. It was a man I had not seen in 20 years. A tall man with deep-set eyes and a beard graying at the edges. He held a small envelope in his hand. "Morning, Zadie," he said softly. "Been a long time." I knew that voice. I knew it even before I remembered his name. Jericho Price. My husband's closest friend. A man who had once promised to look after me if anything ever happened. I swallowed hard. Jericho stepped closer and held out the envelope. "I think you lost something last night," he said. "Something important." My knees weakened. The envelope he held was the tiny page with numbers. The same one that slid under the door. The same one I thought was gone forever. As he placed it in my hand, he leaned in and whispered something that made the room tilt. "Your husband told me to stay close. He said one day you would need me. And that day is today." I felt the air leave my lungs. Jericho looked over his shoulder, lowered his voice even more, and said the words that froze my heart. "Zadie, they know about the farmhouse. They know what it's worth now. And they are coming for it." I stepped back, gripping the doorframe to steady myself. "Coming for it? Who?" Jericho's answer made my stomach twist. "Your son did not come to see you last night because of love. He came because someone told him what you still had." The envelope in my hand slipped. My breath trembled. I looked into Jericho's eyes and knew the truth. Last night was not just disrespect. It was a warning. A beginning. And I was in more danger than I had understood. Jericho stood on my porch with that same stillness he used to carry back when he and my husband worked late nights on the old farm. He had the kind of face time has pressed on, but not broken. The lines around his mouth looked carved by years of holding back truths no one asked him to tell. And now he was here, holding the truth I didn't even know I needed. He stepped inside quietly, closing the door behind him like he was afraid someone might be watching. I clutched the envelope he had returned to me. The little page with the numbers. The one I had almost lost under the door. Jericho's eyes scanned the room, landing on the newspaper on the couch, the dish I forgot to wash, the empty place where my quilt used to be. "Where is your son?" he asked softly. The question made my throat tighten. My voice cracked. "I do not know. He and Tessa left last night. They did not come back." Jericho nodded, slow and thoughtful, like a man piecing together a puzzle out loud. "Then we do not have much time." Before I could ask what he meant, he walked to the window and lifted the corner of my curtain with 2 fingers. His jaw tightened. "Someone has been sitting in that silver car across the street since I got here," he said quietly. "And they were there before I arrived." I moved to look, but he gently lifted a hand, stopping me. "Do not go near that window. Not yet." A chill shot through me. Jericho sat down on the couch, leaned forward, and rested his elbows on his knees. "Zadie, tell me exactly what happened last night." So I told him. I told him everything. How Tessa threw the quilt into the bin. How the small paper slipped under the door. How Aaron stayed silent through it all. How the quilt, the letter, the envelope, and my heart all felt like they were being stepped on at the same time. Jericho didn't interrupt once. He listened the way people listen when the pieces they've been holding finally start to make sense. When I finished, he let out a long breath. Your husband was smarter than anyone gave him credit for, he said. But he made one mistake. He thought the people coming after that land would give up once he died. I stared at him. Jericho, what are you talking about? What land? Who is coming after it? His eyes moved to the tin box I had set on the table. The farmhouse. Zadie. The land you two own together. It used to be worth just memories. But now there's money under that soil. Big money. Developers want it. Families want it. And people who do not play fair want it too. My breath hitched. And my son. Does he know that? Jericho hesitated. The kind of hesitation that hurts more than a direct answer. He knows pieces. Not everything. But enough to make him desperate. Maybe desperate enough to choose the wrong voices. I felt that sentence like a stone dropping inside my chest. My son. My quiet boy. The baby I once rocked on the porch. Could he really put me out for land? Jericho must have read my thoughts because he leaned closer. Listen to me. I am not telling you this to break you. I am telling you so you stop thinking last night was only disrespect. It was strategy. Someone is pushing him. And I have a very good idea who. I swallowed hard. Who? Jericho opened his mouth to answer, then froze when a soft thud came from my front porch. We both went still. Another thud. Then a quiet scrape. Like someone sliding something under the door. Jericho reached into his pocket and pulled out a pocket knife. He flicked it open with a soft metallic snap. Stay behind me, he whispered. I obeyed. He moved to the door, knelt down, and picked up whatever had been pushed inside. When he stood and turned to me, his face had gone pale. He handed it to me. It was my mother's quilt. Folded neatly. Clean. And on top of it was a small note written in a sharp black ink. You are running out of time. My hands began to shake. Who would do this? Who would take the quilt, clean it, and send it back like a threat? Jericho took the note from me and flipped it over. His jaw clenched. This is not just a threat. It is a warning. Someone wants your attention. My legs felt weak. I lowered myself onto the couch and stared at the quilt. Jericho paced the room, rubbing the back of his neck. Zadie. Listen. I need you to pack a small bag. A few clothes, your papers, that tin box. Nothing else. You are not safe here. Not safe. The words made the air thin. Where would I go? Jericho stopped pacing and crouched in front of me. We are going to the farmhouse. It is the only place they will not expect you to go. I will explain everything on the way. But we need to leave before the sun goes down. I looked at him, my heartbeat loud in my ears. I cannot just run. He held my gaze. If you stay, they will corner you. If you go, you have a chance to take back what is yours. I opened my mouth to speak, but before a word left me, something else happened. A car door slammed outside. Jericho snapped his head toward the window. That is not the same car as before, he whispered. That one is newer. More footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Then a woman's voice I recognized, sharp as a knife through fabric. Mom. Open the door. We need to talk. Tessa. Jericho stood up fast. Zadie, do not move. Do not say a word. She is not alone. The doorknob rattled. Mom. I know you are in there. Open the door. My throat went dry. Jericho grabbed my arm and whispered, we are leaving. Now. Through the back door. Quietly. But before we could take a step, the front doorknob stopped rattling. The house fell silent. Then Tessa's voice returned, lower, colder, almost smiling. Fine. Have it your way. We will get what we need one way or another. Her footsteps moved away from the door. Then another set of footsteps followed hers. Male footsteps. My son. Aaron. My heart cracked open again. Jericho took my hand. Zadie, this is no longer about respect. This is about survival. I nodded slowly, my breath shaking, my eyes stinging. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure my own child was standing on my side. Jericho held my wrist like he was guiding someone who had forgotten how to run. And maybe I had. At 54, running was something I only did in dreams, chasing the younger version of myself who still believed life would be kind. But right now, there was no time to remember who I used to be. Only time to leave. We moved down the hallway toward the back door, my breath trembling, the quilt pressed tight against my chest. The old floor groaned under our feet. Every sound felt loud enough to give us away. Jericho whispered, "Stay close and do not look back." I nodded, even though part of me wanted one last look at the front door. At the place where my son had just stood. The boy I raised. The child who used to tug my apron and say, "Mama, pick me up." And now, he was outside plotting something I could not name. The moment we stepped outside through the kitchen door, the cold morning air slapped my skin. Jericho glanced around the yard. No one's out back. Good. Move fast. He led me across the patchy lawn, past the leaning fence, and down the narrow alleyway behind the house. My heart thumped in my ears, drowning out everything except the drumbeat of fear. A shadow flickered across the side of the fence. I gasped and froze. Jericho leaned close. "It's a cat. Keep going." I exhaled and followed him until we reached the end of the alley. Parked there, tucked between two garbage bins, was Jericho's old pickup truck. Faded red. Scratched sides. It looked like it had fought storms and survived them all. Just like Jericho. He opened the passenger door and helped me in. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the tin box. "The farmhouse," Jericho said as he started the engine. "That land is the only safe place right now. And we have to get there before anyone realizes we are gone." I tried to steady my breathing. "Jericho, what is really happening?" He looked at me as he put the truck into gear. "I will explain everything. But not until we are on the road." The truck pulled away from the alley, turning onto a quiet street. For a moment, I allowed myself to breathe. But peace never lasts long when danger follows your name. Just before we reached the highway, Jericho stiffened. "That car behind us. Do not turn around." A knot tightened in my stomach. "Is it them?" I whispered. Jericho did not answer. Instead, he pressed the gas. The truck picked up speed, the engine groaning like an old man waking up too fast. I gripped the edge of my seat. "Jericho, tell me who they are." He kept his eyes on the road. "Someone who wanted that land long before your husband died. Someone he used to work with. Someone who thinks you have the documents they need." The documents. The little page with the numbers. The safe deposit key. The deed. I felt suddenly aware of everything in my handbag, as though each item glowed like a target. Jericho's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. "Your husband knew he could not trust that man. So he hid things. From everyone. Even me." The highway stretched ahead of us like a long road into the past. The town shrank behind us. Houses turned into open land. Noise into silence. And still, the car followed. Gray sedan. Tinted windows. Jericho spoke under his breath. "Hold on, Zadie." He swerved onto a side road, then another. The sedan stayed behind us. I felt myself shrinking inside my own fear. Why is this happening? Jericho looked at me. Really looked. His eyes softened, even as the truck bounced over potholes. "Because your husband found something on that land before he died. Something he never told anyone except one person. And that person told someone else. Found what could be worth chasing me." Jericho didn't answer. "Not yet." Instead, he turned sharply onto a dirt road that wound between tall rows of pines. Sunlight flickered between the branches like blinking lights. After half a mile, the sedan finally disappeared. Jericho slowed the truck and rested his head back for a second. They lost us. Good. I exhaled so deeply my ribs hurt. We drove in silence for another hour until we reached the country line. Then another 15 minutes until the road narrowed into a long gravel stretch I had not seen in 20 years. My fingers curled slowly around the tin box. The farmhouse. When we turned the final corner, there it was. Old. Lean. Weathered. But still standing. The porch sagged slightly, and the white paint had long peeled into scattered flakes. The roof dipped a little in the middle. The tall grass swayed in the wind like it had been waiting for me all these years. My throat tightened. This was where I held baby Aaron on summer mornings. This was where my husband mended fences and sang off-key. This was where I was young, and free, and loved. Jericho stopped the truck. We are here. I stepped out slowly, feeling the ground beneath my feet, soft with memory. The air smelled like old wood, wild grass, and something sweet I could not place. Jericho grabbed our bags and followed me up the porch steps, which creaked under our weight. He pulled out the brass key from the tin. This, he said softly, opens more than just a gate. I watched him unlock the farmhouse door. Inside, dust floated in the air like quiet snow. Sunlight streamed through the cracked windows. Everything looked frozen in time, untouched, waiting. Jericho walked straight to the far wall and pressed his palm against a wooden panel. Your husband told me to only do this if you were ever in danger. He pushed the panel aside. Behind it was a narrow hidden space. Inside it was a box I had never seen before. Dark. Metal. Locked. My heartbeat quickened. Jericho looked at me. This is what he died protecting. He placed the box on the table. The metal glinted under the sunlight. Before Jericho could touch the lock again, a sudden soft sound echoed from the back of the house. A footstep. Then another. Slow. Careful. Not Jericho's. Not mine. Jericho's hand went instantly to his pocketknife. Zadie, get behind me. My breath caught. Because whoever was in that house was not supposed to be there. The air inside that old farmhouse felt different now. Thicker. Heavy, like it remembered every secret my husband ever tried to bury. Jericho stood in front of me, pocketknife in hand, his body tense like a guard dog ready to spring. Another footstep echoed from the back room. Slow. Careful. Not the sound of someone exploring. The sound of someone searching. Jericho motioned with 2 fingers for me to stay still. A shadow crossed the far doorway. Then a voice followed. A voice so familiar it made my stomach twist. Mama. It is just me. Aaron. My son stepped into the doorway. He looked tired, like he had not slept. His shirt was wrinkled, his face pale, his eyes darting between me and Jericho. My entire body stiffened. Jericho lowered his knife just a little, but not enough to trust. Aaron. How did you find us? I whispered. He swallowed hard. I followed you. I saw your friend come to your house. I saw you leave. I had to know where you were going. Jericho narrowed his eyes. You followed us. How without that car behind us? Aaron's gaze dropped to the floor. I switched cars. Took Tessa's cousin's pickup. Stayed back far enough not to be seen. My throat tightened. This was the same child who used to be scared of walking to the bathroom at night. The same boy who once cried when he lost his lunchbox at school. Now he was switching cars, following trails, hiding in shadows. This wasn't the son I raised. Jericho stepped slightly in front of me. Why are you here, Aaron? Tell the truth. Every word. Aaron took a shaky breath. Because I needed to talk to Mama before things get worse. Before Tessa does something she cannot take back. His voice broke. Just a little. Enough for me to hear the little boy inside him. Jericho didn't soften. Not even a fraction. What is she planning? He demanded. Aaron looked at me with eyes full of guilt. Mama, she wants that land. She wants the money. She thinks you should be in a home. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere out of the way. My heart cracked open. A sharp pain shot through my chest. A nursing home. So that was her plan. Get me out of the house. Cut me off from my land. Take everything. Mama, I did not agree to it, Aaron rushed out. I swear I didn't. But I also didn't stop her. And that is my sin. Jericho stepped closer to him. She got to you, didn't she? She made you think your mother was a burden. Aaron's voice went small, almost ashamed. It wasn't like that. At first she just talked about how we were tight on money. Then she said you needed help. Then she said the land could fix everything. And I just wanted peace in my house. My hands trembled. I stared at my son. My only son. The one I held through fevers. The one I fed when I had nothing. The one I protected from storms, from loneliness, from everything life tried to steal. And he didn't protect me. Not when he should have. He stood there crying now, but the truth was already carved into the room. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Jericho stepped between us. There is something you need to hear, Aaron. Something you do not know about that land. Jericho walked to the hidden space in the wall and lifted the metal box. This is what your father died protecting. Aaron's breathing stopped. He stared at it as if it glowed. What is it? He whispered. Jericho placed the box on the table. His hands were steady, but the weight of the moment felt heavy enough to bend the room. He looked at me. Zadie, this belongs to you. You open it. My fingers slid over the metal. Cold. Old. Almost humming. The lock clicked open. Inside were papers. Old maps. Letters. Bank slips. A folded deed. And one more envelope addressed directly to me in my husband's handwriting. My heart thudded. Hands shaking, I opened it. My husband's voice returned, soft and steady in the lines of ink. Zadie, if you are reading this, it means the quiet life I tried to build for us has been broken by someone I once trusted. The land is not just memory. It is valuable. More valuable than I ever told you. Under that soil is something people will fight for. I hid the truth to protect you and Aaron. But danger might return. If it does, trust Jericho. He knows everything. I blinked, the words blurring. But then I saw the last sentence. And never trust the man who tried to steal it once before. Jericho froze. Aaron leaned forward. Who, Mama? Who is he talking about? Jericho stepped closer to the lamp and unfolded an old yellow document from the box. You need to see this. He spread it out on the table. The paper trembled under the light. It was a land survey report. But that wasn't what made my breath catch. At the bottom was a signature. One I recognized. Tessa's father. Jericho spoke quietly, carefully. Your husband trusted him once. Enough to let him help with the land paperwork. Enough to let him run the numbers. But the man forged documents, tried to take the land, and when your husband found out the betrayal, they cut ties. Aaron staggered back like someone had hit him. Tessa's father, that cannot be true. She never said. Because he never told her, Jericho said. He left the state soon after. But someone found out the land was worth something now. Someone connected to him. Aaron grabbed his head. Tessa, how much does she know? Jericho locked eyes with him. Enough to have you follow your own mother. Aaron broke down in tears then. Real tears. Not guilt tears. Not small boy tears. But the kind that come when a truth tears a person in half. Mama. I did not know. I swear I didn't know. If I had known. His voice cracked so hard it shattered something in me. He stepped toward me slowly. I am sorry. Please believe me. I looked at him. Really looked. At the boy who had lost his way. At the man trying to find his feet again. But before I could speak, something changed. A sudden slam echoed outside. A car door. Then another. Jericho's face turned stone hard. They found us. Aaron's eyes widened. Mama, that sounds like Tessa's voice. And she is not alone. Jericho grabbed my arm. Hide the box. Now. And get away from the windows. My breath shook. My knees wobbled. Because through the thin farmhouse walls, I heard a woman's voice call out. We know you are inside. Come out. Now. Tessa. And standing with her was the one person my husband warned me about. The sound outside the farmhouse shifted the entire air in the room. Dust stopped moving. Light seemed to freeze mid-air. Even my heartbeat slowed as if it was afraid to make a sound. Jericho moved fast. Hide the box. Now. I slammed it shut, shoved it under the loose floorboard beside the table, and dropped the wood back into place. My fingers shook so hard they scraped the splintered edges, but I didn't stop. Jericho kicked a rug over it with one swift motion. Then the footsteps outside grew louder. Crushing gravel. 2 sets. No, 3. Aaron's breath shuddered. Mama, that is Tessa's car. And the other voices. I recognized one of them. Even after so many years. He was older. Rougher. His voice carried a weight that made my stomach twist. Open this door, Zadie. Let's talk. Tessa's father. The man my husband said never to trust again. The same man who once smiled in our kitchen and told my husband they'd build something big together. The same man who forged papers and tried to steal our land. He was here. Jericho whispered, stay behind me. Aaron, get away from the door. But Aaron didn't move. He was frozen, torn between the mother he betrayed and the wife he believed. His hands trembled at his sides. Jericho stepped toward the front door just as a loud bang rattled the walls. Then another. Open this door right now, Tessa shouted. You are making this worse than it has to be. Worse for who? I whispered. Jericho raised a hand for silence. He cracked the door open an inch and stared out. Then he shut it fast and locked it. They are not alone, he said. There are 2 more people with them. Bigger guys. Hired muscle. My knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. Jericho moved toward the back hall. We can get out through the shed. There is an old truck out there. If it still runs, we. But he didn't finish. Because the back door handle started turning. Slowly. Quietly. Carefully. Jericho mouthed. They are surrounding the house. Tessa's voice came through the front door, colder than winter wind. Mama, if you open this door right now, we can settle everything peacefully. But if you make my father wait, he will not be so kind. That sentence sliced through me. My son turned pale. Jericho whispered to him, you need to decide which side you are on. Right now. Aaron's breath caught. He looked at the door. Then at me. Then at the hidden floorboard. His heart was breaking in his eyes. Mama. I did not know she was like this. You have to believe me. I was blind. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to collapse in his arms and tell him everything would be okay. But survival comes before comfort. Another loud bang hit the back door. Then a man shouted, if she does not open up, we take it by force. Jericho turned to me. Zadie, listen to me. There is something you need to know before they break in. My chest tightened. Your husband didn't just hide documents in that box. He hid proof. Proof that Tessa's father stole money, forged papers, and lied under oath. If this comes out, he goes to prison and loses everything. I covered my mouth. And he knows that if you hand those papers to the authorities, his life is over. Jericho nodded slowly. He thinks you already read them. He thinks you already know. The men outside began talking in low voices. Planning. Preparing. Aaron whispered, "Mama, I am so sorry. I brought this danger to your door." I touched his hand. Not to forgive him. Not yet. But to say I still saw him. I still recognized the boy he used to be. Another voice sliced through the air. It was deeper. Rougher. Angry. "Zadie Marlowe. This land is not yours. It was never yours. Open this door, or we come in and take it ourselves." My legs almost gave out. Tessa's father. Jericho moved fast. He grabbed a rusted shovel from the corner and held it like a weapon. "They are coming. We have seconds." Aaron grabbed a broomstick. And I picked up the quilt. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the last piece of my mother. Maybe because it felt like armor. Maybe because I needed something to remind me I came from women who survived worse storms. The front doorknob twisted hard. Jericho barked, "Stay behind the table." Then, bam! The front door burst inward. Dust exploded into the air. Tessa stumbled in first, her face tight with fury and fear. Behind her entered two large men I had never seen before. Thick arms. Cold eyes. One of them held a crowbar. And behind them, her father. Tall. Gray hair slicked back. A smirk on his lips like he already owned the room. Well, he said. "Looks like the little widow still has fight in her." Jericho stepped forward. "You need to leave." Tessa's father laughed. "I did not come to fight. I came to collect what belongs to me." Aaron spoke up, voice shaking. "This is our family's land. You lied to my father. You tried to steal." Tessa cut him off, her voice sharp. "Aaron, stop. You do not understand anything." Jericho stepped closer to them. "He understands enough. And he is done letting you control him." Tessa's father raised a hand, silencing everyone. "Zadie, give me the documents from the box. Now. Do that, and you can walk out of here unharmed." I felt my heart pound in my throat. I did not move. I did not speak. And something inside me, something that had been small and quiet for years, rose up like fire. I held the quilt tighter against me. No. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at me like they could not believe I had spoken. Tessa stepped forward, anger rising in her face. "You old, ungrateful woman. Do you want us to drag you out of here?" Jericho tightened his grip on the shovel. Aaron stepped in front of me. "Do not talk to my mother like that." Tessa's father looked between Jericho, Aaron, and the hidden floorboard beneath the rug. And then his face twisted with realization. "The box is here." Jericho's muscles tensed. One of the large men stepped forward. And for a split second, everything held its breath. Then, a loud crack sounded from outside. A car door. No, two voices. Fast footsteps. Then someone shouted from the porch. "Sheriff's Department. Open up." Tessa's father's eyes widened. Jericho whispered, "They followed us." Or someone tipped them off. The crowd outside shifted. Radios crackled. Boots hit the wooden steps. The sheriff's voice boomed through the farmhouse. "This is your last warning. Hands where we can see them." Tessa backed toward the window. Her father cursed under his breath. The two men exchanged nervous glances. Jericho leaned toward me and whispered one sentence that made my blood run cold. "This is far from over." The sheriff's voice shook the farmhouse walls a second time. "Sheriff's Department. Everyone inside, place your hands where we can see them." Tessa's father stiffened. The two big men stepped back from the doorway as if the law itself carried heat. Tessa's eyes darted between the window and the floorboard where the hidden box lay beneath the rug. Jericho leaned toward me. "Stay calm. Whatever happens, do not speak unless I tell you." But my son, Aaron, stood frozen, torn, sweating, Heart somewhere between guilt and courage. The front door burst open, and Sheriff Dalton stepped inside, his boots heavy on the wood. He was a tall man with shoulders that filled up a doorway and a voice that never needed repeating. 2 deputies followed close behind him, hands on their holsters. Dalton's eyes swept the room fast. Zadie. Jericho. Step aside. Everyone else, hands up. Tessa's father raised his hands, though his smirk didn't leave. Sheriff Dalton looked directly at him. Calvin Merrick. I never thought I'd see you back on this land. Even the dust in the air froze. Tessa turned sharply. Daddy, you know him? Sheriff Dalton ignored her. Calvin, last time you stepped foot here, you were under investigation for forging property documents. Funny how trouble always drags you back to the same place. Calvin's jaw clenched. You can't prove anything. Not then, not now. Dalton took a slow step forward. Then why are you here? Calvin's lips curled. Collecting what's mine. Jericho stepped in front of me. The land is not yours. Not legally. Not morally. Not by blood. You knew that 20 years ago and you know it now. Calvin's eyes slid toward the rug, the one covering the loose floorboard. Sheriff Dalton followed his gaze. Then his voice changed, dropping low and dangerous. Is there something under that rug? My heartbeat shot up my throat. Before anyone could speak, Tessa snapped. Mama's hiding something. She's playing victim when she knows exactly what she took from us. Sheriff Dalton raised his hand sharply. That's enough. Tessa tried to step toward me, but Aaron moved in front of her, blocking her path. He stared at her with tears in his eyes. Tessa, stop. Please. Just stop. She blinked, shocked he dared interrupt her. Move. Aaron. You don't understand what your mother is doing. His voice cracked. I understand enough. I know she's been hurt. I know she's been alone. And I know you lied to me. The room held its breath. Tessa's face twisted in anger. I did everything for us. Everything. You think she cares about your future? She's old. She's holding on to land that could give us a better life. Why should she keep it? The words hit harder than any blow. Sheriff Dalton stepped between them. Tessa Hart, be quiet unless spoken to. Jericho leaned close to the sheriff and spoke under his breath, just loud enough for me to hear. The box is under that floorboard. Her husband hid documents proving Calvin forged land deeds and laundered money. If they get that box, Zadie's life is in danger. Dalton's face hardened. He looked at me, really looked. Zadie, is this true? My throat tightened. My eyes stung. And slowly, I nodded. Dalton's jaw set. All right. No one moves. He approached the rug, placed a boot on the corner, and pulled it back. The loose floorboard looked almost alive under the sunlight. Dalton crouched and lifted it. Right then, Calvin lunged. Not for Dalton. For me. Jericho shoved me back so hard I hit the wall. Dalton's deputies sprang forward. One tackled Calvin. The other grabbed one of the large men. A chair crashed. Dust flew. Tessa screamed my son's name like he was the one in danger. But Aaron wasn't looking at her. He was staring at me. Mama, are you hurt? I shook my head, breath trembling. Dalton pulled the metal box from the hollow space and placed it on the table. The room went silent as he opened it. He spread the papers, old maps, the deed, forged signatures, letters, across the table. The truth lay there like bones pulled from the earth. Dalton exhaled slowly. Calvin Merrick, you're finished. These documents alone could put you away for decades. Calvin snarled from the floor, still pinned under the deputy. You don't understand. That land is worth millions. Millions. Developers want it. Drilling companies want it. It belongs to me. Sheriff Dalton stepped toward him. It belongs to Zadie Marlowe. And her husband made sure you'd never touch it again. Calvin thrashed, rage spilling out. You old woman. You don't even know what you're holding. Jericho stepped between us. She knows enough. Tessa collapsed into a chair, eyes wide with shock. Her world, built on lies and promises, was cracking open in front of her. Aaron stood beside me silently, his hand trembling near mine, waiting, hoping, for a chance to make things right. Sheriff Dalton looked around the room. Everyone in this house will give statements. But as of now, Zadie Marlowe is under my protection. And so is her land. He turned to me gently. Zadie, we need to talk privately. About what comes next. About your options. Jericho touched my arm. You're safe now. But this story, it's not over yet. The deputies hold Calvin outside in handcuffs. The two hired men followed behind with their heads down. Tessa stayed in the corner crying, her hands over her face, whispering something I couldn't hear. Aaron moved closer to me. Mama, I want to make this right. Please, give me a chance to fix this. I wanted to answer him. But just as I opened my mouth, Sheriff Dalton turned back to me with an expression that made my heart stop. Zadie, there is something in those papers. Something your husband hid from even you. Something you need to see. Something that changes everything. Sheriff Dalton motioned for everyone to stay back as he lifted a single sealed envelope from the metal box. It was newer than the other papers. Cleaner. My husband's handwriting curved across the front in bold strokes that made my breath catch. For Zadie's eyes only. My knees felt weak. The room seemed to tilt. Jericho steadied me with a hand on my elbow as Dalton stepped closer. Zadie, he said quietly, I think this is the truth your husband wanted you to know when the time was right. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a short letter, and a document with a golden seal. I unfolded the letter first. My love. If danger ever returns, and it will, Jericho will guide you. But you must know the real secret. The land is not an inheritance. It is your birthright. Your mother left it to you before she died. She had land tied to her family name, land my father tried to buy but she refused. She wanted it to be yours alone. I only added my name to protect you from the people who wanted it. This land is yours, Zadie. Only yours. And there is more. If anything happens to me, the mineral rights beneath the farm, they belong to you too. You are far richer, far stronger, far more powerful than you know. Do not let anyone diminish you again. Love always. Samuel. Mineral rights. The world spun for a moment. My throat closed. Jericho whispered beside me, that means the drilling companies were offering millions. And Samuel made sure it went to you, not to anyone else. I pressed the letter to my chest. My heart beat so hard I thought it might break open. Sheriff Dalton placed a gentle hand on the table. Zadie, you have full legal ownership of the land, the mineral rights, and the deed. You can do anything you want with it. Sell it. Lease it. Build on it. Or keep it forever. Everything Calvin and his partners wanted, they have no claim. No power. No standing. Calvin, still handcuffed on the ground outside, let out a roar of pure anger that echoed through the broken porch. Tessa jumped at the sound. Tears streamed down her face. She sank into the chair, whispering, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Aaron stepped forward. Mama. I'm sorry. I was blind. I let her father trick me. I thought I was helping my family. I didn't realize I was hurting the woman who gave me everything. His voice cracked. His shoulders shook. Jericho stepped aside and left us facing each other. The room grew still. Mama, Aaron whispered, I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn your forgiveness. I won't rush you. I won't push you. But please, let me stand with you now. Let me protect you the way you protected me. My eyes burned. My heart trembled. But forgiveness is not a switch. It is a road. I reached out slowly and took his hand. You hurt me, Aaron, I whispered. But you are my son. And I won't lose you. Not to greed. Not to lies. Not to fear. He broke down in tears, clutching my hand like it was the last piece of home he had left. Tessa looked at him, pleading. Aaron, what about me? What about us? What about our baby? He turned to her with a face I had never seen on him before. A man who finally understood the cost of silence. Tessa, I will support our child. But not a life built on lies. Not a life where my mother is treated like trash. If you want to stay with me, things must change. Tessa's lip quivered. She looked around the room at the deputies, at the evidence, at the truth. Then she looked at me. For the first time, really looked. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should never have spoken to you the way I did. I was angry, selfish, and desperate. And wrong. Her apology trembled in the air. But forgiveness, that would take time. Outside, the deputies escorted Calvin and his men into patrol cars. The tension in the house slowly drained, leaving only quiet, sunlight, and the weight of everything we had survived. Jericho turned to me. The question now is, what do you want to do with all of this? I looked around the farmhouse. At the old beams. The cracked windows. The dusty floors that once held baby Aaron's footsteps. The walls that held my laughter. My tears. My youth. This wasn't just land. It was legacy. It was strength. It was the story of every woman in my family who refused to bend to the world. I lifted my chin. I'm keeping it. All of it. This land is mine. My mother's. My husband's. And someday, when the time is right, my grandson's. Jericho smiled, proud and warm. That's what Samuel wanted. Sheriff Dalton nodded. We will process everything today. You'll leave this farmhouse as the official owner, and one of the wealthiest women in this county. I laughed softly, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in so long. It wasn't joy. It was relief. Strength. Rebirth. Before we left, I folded the quilt gently and placed it over my shoulders. I walked to the porch, looked out at the wide fields glowing under the afternoon sun, and whispered, Mama. Samuel. I did it. I stood my ground. Jericho, Aaron, and even Tessa followed behind me. The wind carried the scent of wild grass. The earth beneath my feet felt solid, safe, mine. For the first time in years, I felt whole. And as we walked to the sheriff's car, I turned to the camera in my mind, the one that holds every viewer walking this journey with me, and I said, thank you for staying with me through this whole story. Please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss more powerful stories like this one. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I want to know every single heart that walked this road with me.